welcome. I'm Taiki Sarantakis, president of the Canada School of Public Service. And today we are doing our first in our new series, our Tech Demo Week from the CSPS. And Tech Demo Week is something we've done a few times. I think this is our third iteration. And what we do is we highlight Canadian technology from Canadian companies that can help public servants do their job better, faster, and serve Canadians in a more cost-efficient way. Today we have Joe Noss, who is the CEO of Publicus, a little company. Where are you based, Joe? In
Toronto. Yeah.
Toronto. And tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your company before we see your technology.
Yeah, sounds good. So I used to work at Deloitte as a government consultant and dealt with a lot of larger digital transformations. And I would say throughout my life, I've always been first and foremost a government nerd. And I quit my job with a belief that there's so much data that government puts out, both structured and unstructured, right? So structured are ERP outputs or tables, reports in a Excel spreadsheet. Structured is the actual RFP document, for example, or a contract or any PDF. And all of this information is finally able to be used because of AI. We can process it, we can automate work we do today, we can deal with a lot of the tedious tasks we have. But first, you need to clean that data up. And so that's really what Publicus does. And we started on the problem of procurement, where today we help Canadian businesses navigate the procurement system by gathering all this data. And what we discovered was the system we had built to process all of this procurement data was actually really good at just processing government data generally. And so we ended up working with PSBC on a project to provide some analytics on procurement. And now through Innovative Solutions Canada, we're working with the digital services branch at Procurement Canada to clean up a lot of kind of the gaps in data there today, which I can dive more into later on.
Yeah. So today what we're going to see is a specific example of data use, but if I heard you properly, it's an example of data use. It's not like you're locked into procurement. You can actually do this with ATIPs. You can do it with, reports from Transport Canada. You can do this with reports from Natural Resources Canada, and on and on and on. So the data is particular in this instance is from procurement, but kind of data is data. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's completely accurate. And when you look at government technology generally, I think there's a few archetypes you often see, right? Case management solutions, which are meant to track decision making or a process. There's ERP systems, which are meant to track financials or units of measurement like payroll. And then there's often document storage, right? So SharePoint, OneDrive, places where we're keeping these PDFs. And all of these systems are really built about record keeping and compliance, but they also, when brought together, allow for such insights into these processes. So that's what Publicus is all about, right? Taking these disparate sources, bringing them together, and allowing us to actually build reports, dashboards, agentic workflows, whatever it may be to solve government's problems in that use case.
Yeah. So take a moment, punch it up, but I want our audience to really internalize that, which is we have a lot of data in the government of Canada, terabytes and petabytes and terabytes and petabytes and on and on and on. In some ways, we're drowning in data. And one of the things that we have to shift to now is taking data and gleaming insights from the data rather than being overwhelmed with the data. So, how are you? Do you got it popped up yet?
Yeah. I can share screen on this right now.
There we go.
Okay.
Now, I want you to tell us what we are seeing. So, we are obviously seeing a platform of some type. Tell us a little bit about the platform.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you through what the process would usually look like when working with us or in a use case generally, where you would define what the data sources you want are. And in this context, we're using specifically proactive disclosure data and award notice data, as well as some physical contract documents. But This onboarding would usually take a few weeks. You'd define the data sources you want to include. We'd process them, make sure that we would have 99.99% accuracy, make sure that we'd have human in the loop reviewing every kind of AI output to build confidence in the system before you ever start to use it. And once those data sources are onboarded and ready to go, you can
Now,
really
now
start.
before you go back,
Yeah,
so the first two things, um,
sorry.
sorry,
Yeah.
the first two things that you'd click three things. The first two were public. Is the third public as well, or is that
Yeah, in this example, this is all public information. These are contract documents that were ATIP'd essentially, right? So this is a demonstration of bringing together ERP data, which is structured, as well as some unstructured contract documents. But it's all in the public domain.
perfect? So these are things that anybody can go. The first two, anyways, they're already out there.
Yeah.
And you've just kind of pointed your platform at them. And then the third is things that have been released through ATIP.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrific. Okay, let's see the next stage.
Yeah. And then you'd just be able to work with our system and define what you're actually interested in, be it year over year growth trends or spending by industry and department, the top vendors, defining ultimately what you want this dashboard or report to focus on. And finally, our system will bring together all of these different inputs and generate whatever is the output you're kind of looking for. And in this
Now,
context,
you're really smart and you're really quick because you're from the private sector. I'm from the public sector. So slow down and go back again. I want to see what you clicked on. I
yeah,
want to see. So we have three data sets as we
yeah,
talked about.
yeah.
Now continue. So now let's look at, we've got some text here. It says I've connected three data sources, 500,000 contracts. I assume that's all automated.
Yeah, and because we've already defined all of these data sources, their fields, once that's all in place, it's very easy to now use AI to kind of create a dashboard, a report, a workflow, whatever it may be. And in this context, for example, right, understanding spending by industry or top vendors and year over year growth trends, these are the types of things we can specifically say we'd like to focus on and build a dashboard
All
around.
right, so let's unclick the year over year growth trends.
Mhm.
And now we've clicked spending by industry and department and top vendors. So I assume if we click build dashboard, what we're going to get is the biggest contracts in the government of Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we'll be able to see now the total spending year over year within the government of Canada. We can see the top vendors. We can actually filter by, for example, a specific category like IT services and consulting, and see how that impacts the top vendors or the spending over time. We can see who those top vendors are working with, their name variations within the data today, why they're classified within our data as a foreign government. We can see the top departments they work with, their top contracts, their competitors. We can even see recent contracts, the procurement officer involved, and if you should reach out to them, essentially. And you can actually
So
look.
yeah, let's go back because
Yeah.
part of the demo is being able to kind of drive if you're not the owner of the company, if you're not within the company. So
Yeah.
um,
100%.
I imagine D&D does our biggest procurements.
Mhm.
All right, so let's just focus on one department. Let's
Yeah.
go D&D.
Mhm. Department of where is DND?
There
Yeah.
we go. So let's pause. So this is, what are we looking at here? $107 billion. Is this procurement last year, year
This
before?
is over the past 10 years.
All right. So, and can we make it the last 5 years?
Yes. We like right now we can't change the time frame, but we can just look specifically like here's
All
the
right.
yeah,
So,
for the purpose.
let's see who the biggest contractors
Yeah.
were over the last 5 years cumulatively.
Yes, this is cumulative over the past 10 years. Yeah.
All right. So, Canadian, foreign, Canadian, CAE. Can we now click on one of those? Let's look at the F-35. Can we get more insight on the F-35?
Yeah. Yeah, I had just clicked on CAE. And I'd also specify here, Taiki, that when we say foreign and Canadian, this is based on ultimate beneficial ownership. As a part of this analysis, like you can define whatever way you'd want to classify organizations.
Right,
That's part of the enrichment we can do. And we can instead say, let's use the country label, which is what we use today within the Government of Canada's
right.
analysis, right?
So that's really important because what you're saying is if ISED comes up with a new definition of Canadian, you've already got the data, you just filter differently. If the next IP strategy has, or if there are different definitions of Canadian depending on whether it's military or whether it is non-military, the data is already there and you just change filters. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Exactly. And we can, these are the types of things which you just define with us and we're able to kind of implement accordingly.
All right. So we've got a total value of 4.3 billion. You see now it could this tell me or tell an interested person, oh, perfect. How, so will it tell me how much has actually been spent or we don't know that yet?
This is coming from proactive disclosure. So it
Right.
should be the payment being logged essentially against the program.
Right. So basically, if you are outside the government and you want this information, it's all the information that's public, which is
Yeah.
quite significant. But if you were a user within a department, if you kind of pointed that at your intranet data,
Yeah.
you could add even more data to this.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Let's look at the F-35. So we've got competitors, Airbus, CAE, Bell Textron. Let's scroll down.
Mhm.
Their latest air parts, national defense. Let's look at all contracts.
Yeah.
So it's one big contract.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can see from that. You had like a little window where
Yeah.
you popped up. Perfect. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so here you can actually see the contract details based on the proactive disclosure data. You're able to see the vendor name. You can see our normalized vendor name, right? Which is important for some of the proactive disclosure data and data generally within government. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of variations for a company like Deloitte, right? So our system is very good at identifying all these variations, normalizing them, and bringing it together. And that's a part of the challenge that we often see with government data is really standardizing it across different formats, which is legwork that no one really wants to do and is the type of thing that AI is really good at.
Right. So if I understand you properly, this is like and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Canonical vendor is like the kind of the beneficial ownership group, and when we say IBM, it captures IBM Canada, IBM Ottawa, IBM 794 Ontario Limited. It aggregates all of the subcontracting or the alternate names
Yeah,
into who is kind of the beneficial owner. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah. And even for Deloitte, there's Deloitte LLP, there's Deloitte Legal, right? There's all these different entities and it brings it together.
So you can see the power of getting insight from data. and that is remarkably powerful. I can tell you, Joe, within the government of Canada, a lot of this is very manual. A lot of this is emails back and forth between departments, units within departments, reconciling kind of what's in your system versus what's not in your system yet. Sometimes the system doesn't catch that IBM is the same as IBM Ontario Limited, which is also the same as IBM 794
Yeah.
Limited. Tell us a little bit about the categories. So I see here you have IT services and consulting.
Yeah.
See what other categories you've kind of templated.
Yeah, so this is just based on the vendor industry, right? So software and cybersecurity, staffing and professional services. This was based on simplicity for the analysis we were doing, but ultimately we can go as deep or as wide or whatever classification system you want. For example, on Canada Buys today, they use the UN's procurement classification code. We could use that to classify data. We could use the NAICS code, right? The whole point here is any type of enrichment you want on this data, be it cleaning up vendor names, be it classifying things a certain way. That's the type of enrichment we're able to do with our agents. And I'd add, like, you're actually just able to chat with this data, right? So we could ask questions like, okay, which IT vendors work with more than 10 departments? And the data and will actually be cited exactly where we're pulling this information from. There'll be complete auditability into any transformation that's been made. And I know with the government of Canada and governments generally, that's extremely important. You need to know what are the document sources that are kind of the input to this analysis. What are the contracts that are being cited? And in this context, the system's specially designed exactly for that, right? With the requirements of the government of Canada in mind.
So let me ask you the question since it has conversational capacity.
Yeah.
Um, Give me the name of the three companies who have the most amendments in their contracts.
Yeah. So I don't have amendment data in this at this
Okay.
time, but that's a good one. Yeah.
Uh, what data do you have where I could ask like the three?
Top vendors with any department. You could do top vendors in any category, top departments in any category, years in terms of spending. Yeah.
Who are the top three companies in cyber security contracts with the government of Canada?
Yeah. And with these types of questions, right, we could automate this report so you get it biweekly to your email to keep track of this specific question, right? So cybersecurity, we could actually just look to generate a report from here. I'll use VMware as another example where there was recently a breach in September, I believe, where understanding which departments have contracts with VMware is critical in order to quickly deal with the issue, right? Without this kind of visibility, you can't do that easily. And then you can just generate a report. You can ask it to create a PDF that you can use and share with your team. Um, the last piece I'd add here is that the goal is ultimately once this data is all in place for anyone to build whatever agents they want. An agent in this context just means automated workflow, right? Define the data inputs you want, define whatever are the types of enrichments or processes you're looking for, the output, be it an executive report or an email, and ultimately the frequency you want and where you need that to be delivered to. And this is the sort of thing where the expectation is not for you to do this all yourself, right? We will help you and make sure every piece of the puzzle is aligned, but this is a demonstration of how you can start to use this data to actually replace some of the more tedious tasks you may have.
Now, Joe, obviously, with all of this capability, with all of this capacity to generate instant insight, clearly you have what, 30,000 employees, 40,000 employees, 50,000 employees?
Yeah, so we're at five folks right now. We're growing quickly, but I think it's a demonstration of the power of AI today, where the thing it has the greatest impact on is our ability to code and create code and move very quickly in that context. And I think something that's challenging, and this is true for governments across the world, is IT spending for governments is only going up. While we see in the stock market that all software is being devalued because people know it's a lot cheaper to build, right? So, how do we help government realize these gains of coding and software being cheaper? And to me, I believe a critical part is just taking all these data inputs, cleaning them up, and getting them AI ready. So, in 2 years, folks won't even have to work with me, and they can just create these types of reports, workflows, dashboards, applications themselves. The first piece is just getting all this data clean and ready and ultimately free from the legacy ERP systems that trap them in, right?
I'm actually going to, if I can be so bold, I'm going to correct you. The first step is actually digitizing.
Fair.
You would be amazed how much data in governments, including the government of Canada, has not yet been digitized.
Yep.
And at one point, I certainly hope it's less now, but at one point, the footprint of the government of Canada in terms of our holdings for offices was about 7% filing cabinets. So if you think of that, if you have 100,000 square feet of office, 7,000 of that used to be filing cabinets. So we have a lot of data and we
Yep.
generate data every single day. Joe, thank you so much. This was a wonderful demonstration. What I really like is how quickly you get the insight, whether you're a manager, whether you're a director, whether you're a deputy minister, whether you're a minister, whether you are a parliamentarian. This is the type of information that should be accessible nearly instantly to decision makers because it's factual information.
Mhm.
It's not information that requires analysis. It's not information that requires coordination. It's simply facts. And for me, getting public policy right means first having your facts right. And until and unless you have your facts right, you cannot move forward and do intelligent public policy. Thank you so much for kicking off our CSPS Tech Demo series, and look forward to watching great things from you and your other four people in the
Yeah.
years to come.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Take good care.